Hello and welcome back to Dave's Movie Diary. Yes, I'm keeping the fish in the subject thing going just a little bit longer. I couldn't resist talking about Fish Tank from 2009. I've seen it 3 times now. I was pretty blown away the first time I saw it, not long after it came out. It just felt so real and gritty. Better than most movies of its type. And I was keen to see whether it still had the same impact coming up to 20 years later, which is a bit frightening. So good time to circle back while I'm on the fish theme. What happens in Fish Tank? It's really a film that follows 15-year-old Mia around. She lives with a younger sister, Tyler, and a mother, Joanne, on a very tough housing estate in Essex, in England. She's been expelled from school. She's angry. She's defensive, getting into fights a lot. But she also dreams of becoming a dancer, and she practices hip-hop routines on her own in an abandoned flat above where she lives. And this is probably the only way she can escape her life. Things take a turn when Mia's mum, Joanne, brings home a new boyfriend, Connor. This is the Michael Fassbender performance. However, probably unlike most adults that she's encountered, Connor actually pays attention to her. So he encourages her dancing, gives her positive feedback about that. Shares his love of music with her, takes the whole family fishing. So for the first time in a long while, Mia starts to experience what genuine kindness is from an adult man. So as this relationship goes on, though, the boundaries start to get increasingly blurred. And I think Mia mistakes Connor's attention for something deeper, while Connor's behaviour towards her becomes more and more inappropriate. And at the same time, Mia's already fragile relationship with a mother, Joanne, deteriorates even further. Some of those scenes are pretty painful to watch, actually. Eventually, Connor, I don't want to say takes advantage of Mia. This is where it gets tricky, right? She's 15, so it can't be consensual. But Mia wants that sexual contact with Connor, but it's wrong. He's drunk. That's no excuse. He's not drunk enough to know. I mean, he is drunk. He is sober enough to know what's going on. They both go with it, and that changes everything even further, of course. He leaves, or he gets thrown out. We never actually see that scene with Joanne and Connor, but you can assume that Joanne realises what's happened, or the fact that Connor's been hiding a wife and a young daughter. Regardless, Mia follows him, finds out where he lives, knocks on his door, incredibly. And this sets off another chain of impulsive decisions that place both herself and others in danger. And without spoiling the ending, I think you could sum it up by saying that Mia has to really confront the reality of the life that she's been living and decide whether she can actually break free from that. So it's a deeply affecting coming of age story about neglect and longing and poor choices, definitely. Ultimately, I think it's a film that asks whether someone who's been raised in very difficult circumstances can still find a better future for themselves. This was filmed by Andrea Arnold, directed by Andrea Arnold. Apparently, I did look into her history. She'd already won an Academy Award for a short film, Wasp, which I haven't seen. A few years before this, she made a film called Red Road, which I think I've seen, but I can't remember much about. I do know though that she made a film called American Honey in 2016, which is fantastic, and that's a film I'll be talking about more when I get around to watching it. um, I think remembering what I can about American Honey and seeing Fish Tank again, Andrea Arnold never judges the characters. She observes them. She paints them. She doesn't paint them in their best or worst light. She just shows them as they are. So there's shades of grey, which is what I always like about these kind of filmmakers. They're often flawed people in the films that I've seen. This and American Honey in particular. And it nearly makes Fish Tank feel like a documentary then. Handheld camera, running after Mia as she's bolting out of her flat down the stairs to get away from her mum, her social worker, just a life at times. So it's a fantastic, another fantastic effort from a really interesting filmmaker. Katie Jarvis as Mia. This is her first acting role, and it shows in the best way. So there's no cinematic awareness. There's no overacting. It's just her. Like she feels like she's come out of that Essex estate. She is perfect for the role. She's got that streetwise look. She's tough, but she does have naivety and tenderness underneath. I forgot that it was an actor playing this role. I just thought it was Mia. She's so defensive, and aggressive, on the verge of womanhood. She appears much older than 15, even though she's not educated and she's very childish in many ways. The level of street smarts make her, and the way she carries herself and stands up for herself. I could have easily thought that she was 18 or 19. Great sense of humour as well, but very self-destructive. It's got to be one of the great screen debuts of this century. I'm putting it out there. It really has to be considered in that realm. I don't think she's done too much apart from this. I haven't heard of her in other films, so be interesting to see what she's doing now. Michael Fassbender, though, obviously has gone on to an incredible career. This wasn't his first film. He'd made a few before this, but what an amazing actor. Hunger the year before is a really interesting film, of course. Popped up in Inglourious Bastards, however you want to say it, the Tarantino film this same year. Massive year for him in 2009. He's always been a brave actor. You watch the film, if you watch the film Shame that came out in 2011, you'll see what I mean. He's willing to put himself in the worst possible light as a character and put himself all out there, if you also know what I mean. There's a scene in Shame where he gets caught, a bit like Judge Reinhold does in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, but a lot more embarrassing. I think I always remember him from Prometheus too. That really good part he played in that Alien trilogy, not trilogy, that Alien franchise movie. The Counselor as well, fantastic. Of course, he was making his way through the X-Men films as well, making quite a good living. But then doing other interesting films on the side, and most recently in Black Bag, which I thought was great, and The Killer as well, that Fincher film. This is definitely up there with one of his most difficult performances, though. I think he has to be charming enough that we understand why Mia falls for him, while simultaneously making us feel increasingly uncomfortable, and he does that. It's a fantastic balancing act. Someone who who I think is recognised as one of the best actors we've currently got. Kirsten Waring as Joanne is probably the saddest character in the film, I think. She felt less to me like Mia's mother than an immature older sister. Still drinking, partying, chasing relationships, just wants to have fun, doesn't want any of the responsibility of having two daughters. She's just not emotionally equipped to be a parent. And Kirsten Waring portrays her brilliantly. So what stood out on the rewatch? Quite a few things. I thought that this generation in this this social strata seems to have been raised maybe by music videos. I've seen it before. I've seen it in real life, how young girls in particular, they get sucked in by the glamour and the glitz that modern music videos have. They sort of get drawn in by the dance routines, which is fine. But then they take it further. The sexuality comes in, the easy way to fortune and fame, on yachts, in bikinis, all that sort of thing. And just being raised on increasingly provocative music videos, where image is more important than substance is a bad start in life, and I think it takes a lot of effort to overcome that. I'm probably reflecting my age in saying this, but it's shocking. I find it now, even when I go out, what young women get away with wearing is tough, because they should be able to wear what they want, right? Fully understand that, but reality needs to kick in as well. And I've seen it. I've seen it with people that guys that don't normally make a comment, but a few drinks in and they'll make a comment, and trouble isn't too far away. Anyway, let's move on. Mia is such a great character, and she is caught in that difficult stage between being a child and an adult, especially in an environment like that where she's had to grow up fast. Father's not around. There's no reference to a father in the entire film. A very immature mother who must have had her extremely young. Joanne doesn't look older than 30 to me. So Mia's had no real guidance in life. No one's really been trying to impose any discipline or telling her that she's worthwhile. The things that Joanne says to her are frankly unbelievable. Dancing is probably her only escape and her only hope in life. And one of those cruelest moments comes when Joanne tells Mia that she was actually supposed to be aborted, that they were on the way to the appointment and pulled out. Is there a more damaging thing to say to your own child? Not sure. But it just tells you everything about Joanne's emotional immaturity. On to Connor, and this is what makes the film fascinating. He is a guy, look, make up your own mind. It becomes increasingly muddy as the film goes on, but for a good part of the film, I had the take on him that he was a good-hearted guy, probably coming from similar circumstances as Joanne and Mia, and trying to do the best he can, trying to help, takes them out fishing, teaching Mia to fish, introducing her to James Brown and Bobby Womack, imposing a bit of discipline, trying to, also giving that positive reinforcement to her, but then there's some warning signs, getting changed in front of her, just things that show a lack of judgment, spanking her, like that's, you're veering close to sexual things there when you're making contact with her like that. Mia sees him having sex with Joanne, and he sees her watching, and he doesn't stop. He seems to revel in that. Then he kisses her, and then the full sex act happens, and you can't go back from that. and he's got to do better. He's the adult, and then we find out he's got a complete nuclear family there in a different estate, in a different socioeconomic status. So sympathy for him disappears, but it's interesting the way that Andrea Arnold sets that up, and then toys with us a little bit. And I thought that as the film goes on, Andrea Arnold just keeps on raising the emotional stakes. Every time I thought the film's reached its limit, because I couldn't remember everything that happened in it, something else happens. Mia breaking into Connor's house, discovering that he's got a wife and a daughter, finding the camera, marking out a territory almost on the floor, and then taking Keely, I think the daughter's name was Keely, away. I honestly had no idea what was going to happen then. I thought the worst. And where it ends up had me on the edge of my seat, literally. When Keely gets away from Mia and runs up that hill onto the embankment, I thought, is there a road on the other side of that? Is there a cliff, a ditch? No, she reaches the water. And then I remembered the earlier sequence where Joanne says Mia can't swim. And Andrea Arnold has planted that information perfectly. And of course, Keely ends up in the water. Looks pretty dangerous. And the rescue is filmed so well. It looks real. It seems to be. I thought, have they subbed in someone older to be Keely? But it seems to be her. I don't know how they did that. She gets dragged across the rocks there. Incredible scene. And then on to the audition near the end, which has been the focus of Mia, the only shining light in her life apart from Connor briefly, but then he shows his true colours. And I was waiting to see how she's going to perform in this audition. I had my doubts about the viability of that audition. It seemed to be for a strip club or something verging on a striptease. You get there, all the other girls are older, they're all made up, they're all professionally dressed, and Mia's there in the usual look of tracksuit, hair tied back, mind racing with Connor's situation and what she's just gone through. And then she gets up and I think, yep, she's going to go through with it. And then she realises exactly probably what the audition is and that she's not up for it either. And just disappears. So another dream's gone out the window. Near the end, she meets up with her boyfriend, who appears to be like part of a gypsy community that go around. Pretty common in the UK, is my understanding. There's a horse there that she's been fascinated with since the start of the film that she initially tries to free. She gets caught. There's a pretty tense scene there, actually, that I think without her boyfriend's intervention would have gone horribly. But anyway, she comes back. There's a great scene with her and a boyfriend in a wreckers where he's scrounging around trying to find some parts to fix his car from, and she helps him out as a lookout. And she goes back to see him. He's nearly got the car in working order, but sadly she learns the horse has been put down, and it's like the final straw for her. And it's the first time that her tough exterior cracks, and we see this frightened little girl, or not frightened, but demoralized little girl, and she breaks down crying. And for most of the film, I thought that was beyond her, but everything seems to be falling apart at once, and but the film does end on a positive note, because she goes to Cardiff with a boyfriend who seems like a decent enough guy, from what we know about him. And there's a bittersweet farewell, isn't there? Because Joanne just doesn't know how to say goodbye to Mia. All they've been through, she she tells her where to go, and it's up to me to make the adult decision to try and stay and force a more amenable sort of parting. And they do. They have this dance, the three of them, with a younger sister, to a Nas track. But Joanne's still behaving like a teenager herself, and ultimately it seems like the child's comforting the parent, not the other way around. So anyway, what affected me most this time on the rewatch wasn't the realism. I think it was the compassion. And Andrea Arnold doesn't excuse any bad behaviour. She shows everyone to the full. But I think she is asking us to understand where this bad behaviour comes from. Why do these people make these decisions? Why are young parents raising children before they're emotionally ready? Is it the poverty? What leads to this neglect and loneliness? I think it's probably cycles repeating themselves. And Mia makes some pretty bad mistakes in this film. To an extent, she does choose her own destiny, but I really wanted to escape from out of there, because I could see maybe that she does have enough character to make it and to build a better life. And the optimistic part of me wants to believe that she at least uses her gypsy boyfriend as a stepping stone to something better, or whether it's with him, I'm not sure. But yeah, is it a date film? I don't think it's a first date film. But I do think if you're in a relationship with someone who enjoys films and likes observing people, this could lead to an incredible conversation. It's not a hangover film, though. It's too emotionally exhausting, too depressing at times, I think. It's a good solo watch, absolutely. And it demands that quiet reflection afterwards. It's a good film to watch at night. You get the full impact, I think. It's a bit wasted in the afternoon when the sun's shining. It really needs you to lock in. I think it deserves it, this film. So I'm actually genuinely surprised that Fish Tank isn't talked about more often. Maybe it is and I'm not aware of it, but it seems to fly under the radar. I don't hear it talked about in best of lists enough. For me, it's one of the finest British films of this century. One of the best films of this century, full stop. Katie Jarvis's debut is astonishing. I don't have words for it. And Fassbender gives one of the trickiest performances of his career. It's an incredible directing achievement. Shows a lot of confidence and compassion, but authenticity above all else, from someone who hadn't made too many films. So I don't think it's just a film about the economic circumstances it's more about longing and wanting to belong. You can see how eager Mia is to just relate to someone. Even with Connor, every time he shows her any attention, her face lights up. She tries to hide it, but it's definitely there. This film is a great example of growing up too quickly and being forced to find any sort of love in the wrong places. But ultimately trying to break free from those circumstances. So it hit me hard when I first saw it. But it hits me even harder this time because, I'm another 15 years older, hopefully wiser, and I've seen a lot more. And I've got kids that are slightly older than Mia, and I've seen kids like Mia. I grew up with kids like that at school, and I always wondered, even at the time, how they were going to turn out, and I was worried about them then. So I worry about them even more now. So, look, a masterpiece. That's where I'll end on Fish Tank. It's incredible. Check it out. I saw it here on the Mubi streaming site. I'm not sure if it's available on other sites, but if you love challenging, interesting, realistic films, Fish Tank is definitely for you. So there it is. As always, thanks for listening. See you next time.